think for me personally, I suppose my lead up to a derby, it wasn't, just another match for me. Maybe other players felt that way, but for me, I think that I did my very best to try and understand what it would mean for the people if on their day-to-day lives they weren't necessarily happy with everything that was going on, or the weather was no good, or they were having troubles at home, or they were just struggling with different things, because life's hard, at times, and you can't sugarcoat it. Hull, like many other communities, has parts of it that are underprivileged, that are just doing the best they can with what they've got, and sport gives them the opportunity to lift themselves up for that period of time, for that 80 minutes, and then they get to go back to their life again. And if you could do something that would keep them up for longer than just 80 minutes, then that's something that you take on that responsibility, and you have to grab it. You have to grab it by the throat, and you have to understand that this is your job. And this is also why you should love your job, because you've got an opportunity to make so many other people happy for longer than just a short period of time. And I think that was something that I really connected with, and so did many of the other players as well. But seeing what it meant, seeing how they carried themselves, seeing the fact that their shoulders were slightly pulled back a little bit further, and their head was a little higher through the week. Smiles were on people's faces. The jerseys were out, being worn more often. That's an incredible opportunity that players are presented with on a weekly basis, but a couple of times a year when it's a derby. It means that bit much more to the people for both sides of the town. But I think that they were the things that were most important. I think some of the insights. Obviously for me, I would go out of my way to obviously try and wind them up either midweek. Obviously Morgs would try and muzzle me at times, as would some of the other players, but that just wasn't going to happen. Because that was part of it. And obviously, when you talk a big game, you've got to try and back it up. And on a couple of occasions we didn't get the job done, and that's okay. But 85-90% of the time we did. So going into the game was about getting them to get them off their game a bit, and then obviously with the crowd, I used to get a lot of energy out of feeding off, first of all, getting some acknowledgement from our home crowd, because they were my first priority, and then quickly moving to the FC fans to get a bit more energy off them, which largely was not as positive. But it was just as uplifting for me, because you got to see both sides. One, how much our fans loved us, needed us, and were right there, right up alongside us. They might not have been on the field, but I'll tell you what, they bloody felt like it. Yeah. And then you had the FC fans that hated you, and again, that's okay. I had no issue with that. Of course, it was personal for me and for them, no doubt, for that period of time. And whilst ever I was wearing, the red and white, it was personal, very personal, because of, as I said before, how much it meant to our people, as I'm sure it just meant just as much to some of the FC players. But that was always something that I enjoyed. And I often, I remember when I wound up, some of the fans and the police would turn around and tell me to move on, because of what it could generate. But that was a big part of it. I think that the bleaching of the hair stuff, that was obviously not ideal timing wise, but rules are rules for us. And Fox United, obviously, we missed a promotion, and we rolled the dice, and obviously got the bleached blonde hair of all times, leading into a derby. Which then sort of triggered a response from the FC people thinking I was being disrespectful and that I was, taking the piss. And Richard Agar had some comments to say, about the respect that I had and all those types of things. And as I said after the game, I think Richard was probably just jealous that I could actually do it with my hair and he couldn't. And that if he needed me as motivation, that he might not have been doing that good a job as a coach. But Richard obviously is a great guy, and that was all part of the theatre, and it was never again anything personal. But I was always going to defend Hull KR people, and particularly people of East Hull. And then if people outside of Hull bagged Hull people, it didn't matter to me what side of town you were on. If you bag us, and you're going to take us all on. So that was very much something that I was aware of. And then obviously the semi was a great moment, knocking them out in the first knockout match that FC and KR had played in for over 20 years, to knock them off the way we did in the finals. There at their home ground, I think was a great experience, and one that I'll certainly cherish for a long time.